Okay, I get this question all the time. How do I segment my email list? I've got a big list. How do I segment it? What's the most effective way to do that? What's going to be valuable? What's going to be a waste of time? So wanted to dive into a few kind of like high level views of segmentation, and hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to understand, hey, what do I do with my large list to make it more relevant? And hopefully, how do I treat my best customers like my best customers with messages that are contextual and relevant for them? Kind of at a high level, what is segmentation? Segmentation is basically the process of taking your larger list and cutting it down into smaller and smaller pieces. Those smaller and smaller pieces are really valuable for those end users because the more narrow the focus of the message, the more relevant the content is for them, the more likely they are to find value and engage with that content. So you're ideally connecting the right message to the right person at the right time. And the segmentation allows you to do that a lot more effectively because you're not sending it to the broad audience where you have to be a little more generic. You can speak to individuals like individuals. The personal touch of that goes really far. And especially in the e-commerce space, it helps kind of drive the behavior you want to see and understanding basically what's that person done in the past, have they purchased, have they not, what stage of the customer journey are at the end, what are the demographics behind this person, what customer category or purchasing category do they fit into, or what use case are they looking for. All of these things really help us kind of narrow down exactly what's going to be the right segments for our audience, what's going to be valuable, and how to reach them with a message that's going to be relevant and hopefully valuable for them. Another question I get pretty consistently is why is segmentation important? Basically, again, like I mentioned earlier, that sending the right message to the right person at the right time is really the end goal of all of this is basically those segments allow us to really get close with that person, intimate, and that segmentation, if it's done well, it should drive better results. Again, more purchases, which nobody hates, and basically a more engaged list that's not going to churn because again you've worked to build that list, you want to nurture that list and you want to get the most out of it. So that's where the segmentation and accurate segmentation is really going to help benefit you in the long term because you're not going to be just starting from ground zero and speaking to a generic audience. You're going to be speaking to an individual as they are an individual. Difference between segments and groups. So segments and groups are basically kind of pretty similar concepts. Basically, segments are going to be just the way you talk about different groups in your list. So segments is kind of an easy generic term for the way you're going to break up a list. You could talk about them as groups, but at a high level, there's not as much of a difference between segments and groups. So what are the different types of segmentation? I always look at segmentation, like my first thing that I always look at is what is the primary segmentation category that we can use for a business. So this is going to be what is going to define and separate our purchasers based on what their needs are, what their intent is, and kind of what their use case is going to be for that product. So basically that high level of like what's going to separate them at a high level to kind of like into specific buckets. And I love doing this around use case or purchasing behavior because it's going to help us maintain the relevance of our messaging specifically for those individuals. So if I were a parent, a grandparent, or a gift giver for a children's clothing company, I'm going to need different messages. So a parent is going to be spoken to like a parent, a grandparent is going to be spoken to like a grandparent, or a gift giver. All three of those different groups are making a purchasing decision, but they're all making them for something different from a different perspective for a different purpose. And this is what you really need to kind of hopefully help to give that message the attention it deserves, but also the ammunition for it to be relevant and valuable for them. So a parent may be walking through like, how many onesies do I need? Hey, these are bundles that are successful for making parents' lives easier. And grandparents like, oh, these are adorable. This is why people have loved us. And even going in as far as like the social proof of this and saying like, hey, a parent may want social proof around like this, they're easy to change at night. A gift giver may want social proof around, yeah, they love these, they were convenient, they were simple and easy. And a grandparent may love the social proof around like this brand has been around for 30 years. All those things are going to speak to those audiences differently, but the more narrow you can focus on those audiences, the more accurate and valuable that messaging is going to be, especially when you're recommending products and for specific groups. Again, I think another example of this would be like in the coffee space. If I were a specialty coffee company, I'm looking at basically like, am I a unique coffee purchaser, a standard coffee purchaser, or a decaf coffee purchaser? And if I'm recommending different types of coffee to them, like a specialty coffee purchaser may want something unique and or a unique coffee purchaser may want something a little bit more experimental or kind of like unique in those capacities. Standard coffee purchaser may want a blend, like that's just a little bit more down the middle and more consistent. And then a decaf purchaser, obviously, they're all purchasing coffee, but they're for very different reasons. So this is a way that you can give them the information they need based on their use case, their purchasing behavior, and this, I call it like primary segmentation data, is something really valuable that you can use during the course of that buyer journey. I like to collect that at the very beginning of that purchasing journey, because that first party data, the earlier you can collect it, the more valuable it's going to be in leveraging it for XYZ reason. Some more first party data like personal interests, SMS subscriber versus non-SMS subscriber. And if you've even gone as far as like asking for like have an equestrian client who we've asked for their horse's birthday and their horse's name, because we can use that. And all that first party data, we're connecting the data with the user and creating something awesome with it. And that's what makes this powerful. Another way to segment your list is basically by behavior. So interacting with your emails, like your 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day opens and engaged lists. Have they taken action on your website? Have they visited your site? Have they not visited your site? Have they submitted a form? Have they submitted a review? Have they followed you on social? All of those things are behaviors they've engaged in that hopefully will give some indicator of how engaged they are or not, and give you an understanding of, hey, this person we can send to on a frequent basis, or this person we should send to a little bit less maybe. We can understand where they are in their customer journey. That's another component of this, could be really relevant. Are they just receiving the welcome series? Are they being nurtured through as a first-time purchaser? Have they lapsed? Are we trying to win them back? Have they recently purchased in the last 5 days and we are trying to get a second purchase? All those things are going to be really relevant to understand, hey, what stage in that customer journey are they in, and how do we know how to message at different times? So if somebody purchases the product the first time, they may not necessarily be looking for a subscription for that product if it's replenishable. If they're purchasing it a second time, then that's when introducing that subscription opportunity seems more relevant. So understanding the context of that customer journey is super important. From there, demographics, this is like kind of the one everybody thinks about when they think about segmentation. What demographic category do they fit into? Like their geography, their age, their country, their region, their time zone, language, gender, and even device preference, like are they mobile versus desktop? All those things are going to be kind of like captured into that demographics bucket. Customer category, I think this is a really important one that can be overlooked at times, but like, are they a customer versus a non-customer? Are they a high OV customer, AOV, average order value customer, versus a low average order value customer? Did they purchase in a specific category? Like, are they a subscriber versus a non-subscriber? Like, if I were a clothing store, are they a apparel purchaser versus a footwear purchaser? Are they a women's clothing purchaser versus a men's clothing purchaser? Are they purchasing a replenishable product versus purchasing a non-replenishable product? All of those are going to fit into different buckets and different categories for me, so I can make decisions around how to message them at the right place at the right time. Are they a loyalty member? Kind of in those customer categories, are they a loyalty member? Or in some cases, I know a lot of organizations have like wholesale customers. Are they a wholesale customer versus a retail customer? And then another area that I think may get overlooked sometimes, are they an omni-channel purchaser? Have they ordered over the phone, and have they, again, ordered on the e-commerce store versus a single channel purchaser? All of those things are going to play a role into this. Again, like connecting that data, like again, Shopify POS makes that a little bit easier for some retailers, but knowing those things helps you understand what's going to be valuable for that customer, and then how to message those audiences in the right place at the right time with a message that's going to be valuable for them. How do I even think about segmenting my list? Like if I'm starting this process, what do I think about? Basically, how do I segment my email list is like starting off with what's going to be valuable for your customer, what's going to be valuable for them, and how are you going to get them the right information they need at the right times. So if you can think about kind of reverse engineering that, putting yourself in their shoes, that's what's going to probably help take that first step of understanding, hey, this is how I can start the segmentation process. And even in a lot of email service providers, there's some baseline segments that are built around like VIP customers, repeat customers, or like, again, potential purchasers. All of those are going to be strong out of the gate, but at a high level, starting with thinking about what's going to be valuable for your customer, who are your specific cohorts of customers, who are those specific segments going to be, and then what are the use cases of your product? Who are the purchasers? The better, I always see the better, basically the businesses that know their customers best are the ones that do this well out of the gate. Because if you know your customers, you're going to be able to understand how to serve them and manage that well. So in a lot of cases, a lot of groups that are kind of like maybe brick and mortar before they go to e-commerce are really successful here because they know their customers. They have conversations with them on a regular basis. They see them, they look them in the eye, they know them so well. So that's where some of the segmentation really plays. It can be a little bit easier, but if you're just getting to know your customers and learning about them, this is where some of those, like, again, kind of audience building activities, or again, customer voice of customer research goes a long way, understanding who your customers are, what use cases they're using your product in, so you can start to kind of hone in on what's going to be valuable for them. Segmenting emails in your campaigns versus your automations is also going to be a different piece of how you think about this too. So for campaigns, making sure like the value of this is like you make sure you keep things relevant for that end user, that receiver of the email. Are you suggesting products that are going to be valuable to them as an individual? Are you going to be serving content that's going to be contextual for them and valuable for them? And basically, you're helping to kind of lead them down that purchasing decision to make their lives easier, empower them with the information they may need to make a decision, feel confident in that decision, and also feel successful at the end of it. In a lot of cases, you're thinking about kind of being proactive and kind of like nudging them. And a lot of this work in segmentation and kind of email marketing is just nudging in the direction you want them to go down. So kind of guiding them through that journey. So like an example of this, if I were again that children's clothing company, a toddler purchaser is going to need something very different than a baby purchaser. So how do I again make sure I'm messaging to my toddler parents differently than my baby parents? Those are two segments that are going to have, they're both looking for children's clothing, but they're both going to be looking for different types of it. Again, one may transition into the next eventually, but those are two different groups that need different information because the use cases of those end users, babies, are going to be completely different, and their needs are going to be different. One's going to have to be in diapers, one may not be. One may need, like, again, onesies. Toddlers don't wear onesies. Like, there's so many different components of it. So understanding, hey, what products are they going to need? What content may they need to help make decisions? Those things are going to be super helpful from the campaign perspective in understanding how to message and how to find ways to message them in a relevant format. And again, like I said, connecting as much first party data as we can to hopefully use some dynamic content inside of those to make sure those are still, like, if we can add like 2 layers of segmentation, that's some, again, kind of very successful. Like I always joke, like that's pretty gangster marketing, because it's 2 layers of segmentation you get to use to really effectively reach them. And then in automations, this is where some of this really comes to play and really becomes valuable, because the way you can chop and slice your lists, the way you can chop and slice your audience, again, engagement and their customer journey is really unique, speaking to different customer segments in different ways based on what they need, how they need it. Some of the segmentation, some of that first party data can be one of the more valuable components you're gathering in your marketing. So if I were, again, wanting to, again, build a welcome series, that first email may be the same for everyone. The second and third email can be different depending on who your audience is. So basically, like, if I could segment, again, break out your email number 2 or 3 across like 3 different segments, those emails are all going to be more relevant for them, more personal for them, and have a more, again, accurate level of content for them. So that's really powerful if you're making personal recommendations, if you're helping to kind of inform and educate a decision, if you're trying to nurture them through that customer buying journey. All of those things are going to be super helpful and super relevant for them to make that decision. And just thinking, hey, I'm trying to get the right message to the right person at the right time. This is how I'm going to do it. And that's how I'm going to incorporate those into my automations. Like a replenishment reminder may be very different from a, again, standard coffee purchaser from a unique coffee purchaser. So your messaging may be slightly different there. Again, the timing may be, again, kind of the same for either, but the messaging and how the nuance of how that messaging is going to be laid out, formatted, or again, tone is going to be slightly different depending on that audience, what they're used to, and again, what's going to be native to how they're used to interacting with you. Also, if like maybe you were messaging loyalty members, this is where like how many points do they have? What different categories or tiers are they fit into? How many rewards would they have available? You can again message around all of those specifics and really have something that's really narrow, really focused, that's going to be really relevant for them. And like I mentioned earlier, we talked about like horse's birthday. This one's a little bit more fun, but like, hey, insert name. Looks like it's Lego's birthday. Lego being your horse. Insert horse's name. Um, it's coming up in about 9 days, and we wanted to reach out and wish them a happy early birthday. And also, just in case you wanted to spoil them, here's blank offer. And again, to make sure they have a great birthday. Those are all ways that you can collect that first party data that's going to be super relevant if, again, the horse owner category, people who own their horses love their horses. There's like people that have specific savings accounts just for their horses. They are crazy about their horses. So if we know that, they're going to know their horse's birthday. They're probably going to get their horse a birthday present. Or if you remind them and nudge them in the right direction, they may be more likely to do that. So all of these things are going to be really relevant. And when, again, the business knows your horse's birthday, like that feels really personal. That feels really unique and really human. And that makes it really valuable for them. So ways of getting closer and closer, more relevant, and adding value through that process. Another question I typically get is like, why is segmentation so important for email campaign success? And like my thought around this is, and just like my thought with a lot of marketing, is like basically attention is hard to earn. It's even harder to maintain. So connecting the right person with the right contextual message at the right time really helps to make sure it's relevant. So if it's more relevant for them, they're going to feel more seen, more heard, and they're going to see that as more valuable. At the end of the day, if you really, again, with marketing becoming more and more competitive, harder and harder, the bar is raising consistently. So the better you can make an impact and the more personal, the more one-to-one you can make that feel, and the more contextual it can be, the more impact it's going to have, and the more likely you are to be successful in your email. And if you're successful in your email on the e-commerce side, hopefully you're driving revenue from it. So that's why it's important. Kind of like basically some of the benefits for segmentation. Like I said earlier, attention's harder to earn and harder to maintain. So maintaining a high level of relevance is going to make sure your emails get more engagement. More engagement drives more activity. That activity drives typically better results. So your deliverability, again, better results equal more money. So less disengaged users, more relevant information, and less unsubscribes, fewer unsubscribes. So less churn of your audience and list. In terms of deliverability, this is another kind of like hack to this is the right message at the right time and the right person also allows for, again, much higher engagement from those emails, much better response. And in the eyes of Gmail, in the eyes of Yahoo, in the eyes of Outlook, insert email service provider, that is a much stronger signal that you are a reputable sender. So your sender reputation is going to improve the more engagement you have and the more valuable those emails are. So again, the low open rate, the low click-through rate, and low conversions on those emails are also going to result in, again, fewer people seeing your email, less, again, lower reputation, and basically what that is going to kind of lead to is more trips to the spam folder or more trips to the newsletter promotions tab. All of those things really impact the way that you're going to be able to drive revenue through your email programs. So those are going to be something that you really want to avoid as much as possible. So the right segmentation is going to help you avoid that. You're going to be able to build stronger relationships with your audience also. So the stronger relationships really go a long way. And again, I always talk about like, hey, you're never going to be able to outscale Amazon, but in some ways you can outhuman them. And this is where some of those small businesses or some of those small D2C e-commerce retailers have some real advantages because they know their audience at such an intimate level that they can really communicate with them in a way that's going to be valuable for them and also going to be hopefully helpful for that business on the other side, because they know their customer so well, and they can again learn and iterate as their customer evolves, as their purchasing decisions evolve, and also as their product catalog evolves and as they introduce new products to that selection. But making that audience feel seen and heard, again, is not easy to do at scale, but this is one area where that's again a really powerful component. And then at the end of the day, like knowing your audience better, increasing the knowledge of your audience, and seeing who they are is never a bad thing. Like the businesses who know their customers best are the businesses who are going to win. And those are ways that you can understand, hey, is this is this going to be a sustainable audience to be reaching out to? Are they going to be engaged? What do they want? What do they need? How do I inform my content? How do I inform other areas of my marketing based on that? But this is kind of that two-way street that you're really working to build, that hopefully that kind of helps everybody out. Some strategies and best practices for kind of starting out of the gate with segmentation, because again, let's be honest, like this could get infinitely complex really fast. So like again, with so many different things you could segment on, there are so many different variables. You could target your audience based on like left-handed members of your audience who drive BMWs in Duluth, Minnesota. It could get as narrow and focused as you want, but again, that's kind of, it's going to be difficult to scale. So not letting perfect get in the way of done. So starting simple, making sure that you can, again, not creating endless segments for the sake of creating segments. Identify what's going to be important at a high level. So like we talked about that primary segmentation goal, what's going to be valuable at a high level that we can really start to leverage and start to build off of. So once we have that, again, a few different pillars of our segments, a few different categories that we're going to be of those purchasing journeys that we're going to fall into, like who are they, what categories are we serving? That's where we can start to like, again, kind of like chop and slice those. So like of those categories, which ones of those are the most valuable to us? Like which ones drive the highest AOV? Which ones typically have the highest lifetime value? Focusing on those first is going to be a really smart area to start. Also, segmenting around behaviors is also a really easy way to do that. Like, do you have, again, one-time purchasers, repeat purchasers, and then like VIP purchasers who have purchased more than 5 times, high AOV purchasers, high lifetime value purchasers? All of those are really easy, like kind of purchasing categories that are pretty easy to add, especially in a tool like Klaviyo. It's pretty simple to leverage and use. Um, Understanding, hey, who's my audience? Thinking about your audience first is probably another great way to start to think about this, is who's my audience? Like, who's my ideal customer? What do they look like? And what are they going to need during the course of their customer journey to be successful? That's, again, a smart way to start through this. Another area where, again, kind of best practice is like, don't ask your subscribers too much. Again, collecting some data on the front end, not collecting too much data, not asking them for too much. Like you can't ask them for like everything under the sun. Maybe once they're highly engaged, or if you're asking them to join a VIP list, you can ask for more. But think about that data collection in layers, where you're thinking, hey, can I collect a little bit of data on the front end? Can I ask them for more as time goes on? And how do I automate that data collection process so it's going to be consistent? Um, it's going to be easy, and I'm asking them for a few small asks, rather than like a big, like, fill out this 50 question survey. No, ask them 1 or 2 things every so often, so you can make sure that you're getting the right information you need, but so you're able to leverage that first party data, but also not too much where they're just going to be like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. Again, that's when they start to churn, or they may not even join your list to begin with. Um, Basically, another best practice is like using segments to include on specific campaigns or exclude on specific campaigns, or again, exclude in flows or automations. It's going to make that process a lot easier and a lot faster for you. So if you want to add your, again, purchasers purchasers in the toddler category, again, your repeat purchasers and your baby purchasers may overlap with your toddler purchasers too. So again, excluding one of those, so you don't have the same person getting 2 different versions of different emails, where if you're sending one to baby purchasers and one to toddler purchasers, you can basically flip-flop who's included in each, so you don't, again, overwhelm that list, and you're sending relevant information to each of them. Those are easy ways to kind of do this in practice. I sometimes use a like unengaged list to keep, again, in that exclude bucket too for campaigns. All of these are going to be just things you can pick up over time, but that's a really easy way to make sure you're sending those campaigns to the right segment, and you don't have to build entirely new segments for those campaigns to use. And then for these to be successful too, use dynamic content when you can, just to make your life easier. So hey, like this person has like this many rewards points available. That means X dollars. Make your life simple. Don't let perfect get in the way of done. Again, this can get infinitely complex, but once it does become complex, you've got to manage that on the other side. So don't let it be too unwieldy. Some segmentation examples. I know I've mentioned a few. Again, like toddler versus baby. Like basically like what type of like event do they do. You can chop and slice this however you want to. If I'm a cyclist, am I a gravel rider, am I a mountain bike rider, am I a road bike rider? All of those things are going to be different ways to chop and slice. Like for that equestrian we talked about, like do they ride hunter jumper? Are they dressage? Are they eventer? And then are they purchasing for their child? All of those are going to be different categories that they all fit into, but all of those are going to be easy ways to start to segment and chop and slice those lists. Those are ones that I really like, that because we can really target and segment specifically around what's going to be valuable to them. Inside of Klaviyo, there's a lot of different ways to do this too. The segmentation here is really smart and really simple. Basically starting with a few of these, like we mentioned, it basically like segmentation segments based on primary segments are super important. So like we talked about, that primary level segmentation is like just really valuable. Accepts marketing, that's another really easy one you need to add really quickly. That's basically anybody who accepts marketing at checkout. So they subscribe to your newsletter at checkout. They're not going to go through your welcome series the way a typical, like again, just subscriber on a popover or on the bottom of your site would, but you want to add them into your list because they're going to just be a different way to reach them. And accept marketing is a great way to kind of like bucket those groups of purchasers, and then you can start to go from accept marketing to like high AOV, high LTV, repeat purchasers. Again, list members who haven't purchased. Out of the gate, when you're warming, you have to do your 30-day, 60-day, 90-day buckets to warm your audience on a new email service provider. So all of those are going to be kind of out of the gate and out of the like pretty simple segments to use. But again, like I said, starting with what's going to be valuable for your customer, what categories are they going to fit into, and then starting to go from there. So you may like, hey, do we sell in Florida? Do we sell like, hey, do different categories of purchasers purchase in different parts of the country? How do we segment those? How do we change those for different information? So it's going to be relevant and valuable for them. Like I used to do stuff like this back in the day for social. We would have like some kind of generic templates we would use, but the messaging would be slightly different for the individuals based on where they're at. So like the 5 reasons why you'll love this school, X school in higher ed, because like for Boston students or high school students, we'd say like because like 1 inch of snow per year, that's going to be relevant for them. And in Florida, that may not have the same staying power because they're not trying to escape the cold in Florida. So what's going to be relevant for them, and based on again region, demographic, all of those components. But again, as a business, that's on you to understand, because the better you know your customers, the more successful this is all going to be. How does segmentation drive revenue? Like we talked about earlier, like the more relevant the information, the less churn in your audience, the less disengaged members of your list. And then also more better segmentation means more relevant content, more engagement, higher deliverability means you're hitting more inboxes, you're seeing more, and that means basically at the end of the day, you're going to be able to drive more revenue. So if you, again, just being present is going to drive you more revenue than hitting the spam folder. So that's a way that you're going to can think about this in a little bit different way. There's also another kind of concept I've worked through and still kind of fleshing out, but basically it's kind of the idea of an audience hierarchy. It's basically different levels of your audience, starting from the bottom going up to the top. It's like, who's your least valuable audience, and how do you move them from the bottom of that customer journey or that hierarchy to the top? So like the top would be your high lifetime value customers who are subscribers, who may be purchasing multiple times and also referring friends. Those are going to be how you can kind of think about your audience hierarchy of, hey, how do I take my, again, like social media followers, how do I get them onto my email list? And then how do I get those subscribers, again, to be engaged? How do I take those engaged subscribers to be customers? How do I take those customers to be repeat purchasers? How do I take those repeat purchasers to be high lifetime value purchasers? And how do we get them to refer their friends? All of those different layers are going to be a kind of a pyramid that we're going to be working up. So each different layer is going to be driving value for you. And as you start from the very bottom, you're working on moving them up that ladder and up that hierarchy. And that's really how you can kind of think about this a little bit differently to say, hey, this is what a good customer looks like. Not everybody's going to start out as that perfect customer, but how do we create the customers we want to see? How do we train them? How do we get them used to it so they know what to expect, they know what they need, and then they come back to us when they need to make any purchase decision? That's kind of the goal for a lot of this work. And again, this is a concept we're going to dive into a little bit more later, but it's a way that you can think about driving revenue and maximizing lifetime value from that segmentation through, again, consistent good emails and consistent good communication with your audiences. So hopefully this wasn't too much. It was hopefully kind of fun. And yeah, if you have any questions or I missed anything, let me know. I, again, need to be called out for stuff that I miss. If there's a gaping hole, let me know about it. Let me know about it. This is, again, an iterative process, and I'm figuring this out too, guys. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.